All right, so what we'll do a couple things today. The first is we're going to go over and we're going to read an article about daylight savings time and how it came about. Because they're actually talking about discontinuing it in some places. It's not necessarily, the states can determine if they want it or not. And this is going to explain kind of why daylight saving time came in existence and what the complaints are about it today. And so we're going to go over this. We're going to read this out loud as a group. And then there's some questions on the back page that go with the questions that, the reading that we're about to do. So if you want to take that off at the end, and as we're reading, fill in the questions, you can do that, and we can just restaple it. So we're going to work on this, and then we're going to go on Canvas. And so I just put, we have a PowerPoint on elections. Since the election today, we're going to have PowerPoint on election process. But I want us to go on Canvas because I put in I'm using Cami, and so now you can actually put the boxes in. And so I want to kind of figure out if everyone's good on it. And this video will also go to the students who are at home. And so that way when instead of having to print it out or write answers on something else, all you have to do is put a little text box there and put the answers. So you think you've done that before? And so I just started working on it. And so we'll see how it goes. It should be relatively easy. But obviously there's always little concerns whenever we do something new. So this is daylight savings time, so we can actually, that's just a baby yawning. And so we actually can go to the second page, and I'll start, and then hopefully some others will help me with some of this information to read it. So, there's now a renewed call for a nationwide end to the pesky tradition of changing the time twice yearly. It's led by medical expert, lawmakers, and frazzled parents who want to stop to the March and November switch that was formally adopted by the government in 1966 to save energy. The amount of the year we use daylight savings time was expanded in 1986 and 2007. The group is citing COVID-19 as a factor, COVID's everywhere I guess, in factor into this, claiming people are already under stress from the pandemic. They say that since sleep loss leaves us more susceptible to viral illnesses, it is a bad moment to potentially lower the body's immunity. Given the relationship of stress to the immune system, I think it would be wise to choose between daylight savings time and standard time and stick to it, said Dr. Beth A. Mallow, a professor of neurology at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville, Tennessee. She advocates staying in standard time once the clocks go back this weekend and not springing forward to DST in March 2021. Hawaii, Arizona, along with Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, the Northern Mariana Islands, and the Virgin Islands are already practicing this schedule. Who would like to read now? Go out there, run out there. Come on, reading's good for you. The better you read, the better you do. Don't be shy. Come on. Come on. Who wants to read? Gabby?
No.
Come on, just read just a paragraph. Come on. It's good for you. You don't have to read. Y'all gonna have to read as much. The more you read out loud, the better reading will be, and the better your life will be, and the better, easier it'll be on tests and everything else. What happened?
Dirty bullets, I'm gonna throw them in there? Or?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Thank you.
Oh, and the part where it says it is difficult.
She advocates.
Oh, she advocates?
No. You're right. It's difficult to quantify the benefits. There you go.
Abandoning the switch for mellow
Very good. Very good. A study in JAMA Neurology from last year found some evidence that people are higher risk of heart attack, stroke, and other harmful effects of sleep deprivation around the time of the shift results in adults losing an average of 15 to 20 minutes of slumber. Doesn't seem like a lot, 15 or 20 minutes, but I guess. What do you guys think you actually sleep a night? Throw out some there.
Like 5 hours.
5 hours? Yeah, see, that's low.
4.
4, that's really low.
I go to bed at like 3.
Did you take a nap?
No, I go to bed at like 3 and then I wake up at like 6, so.
Oh my goodness, how do you keep that energy? That's pretty, you should have at least around 7 hours. If you're old like me, they're saying 9, I don't get 9. You're supposed to. What about you? What about you two? What do you,
I don't have a sleep schedule.
huh?
I just sleep whenever.
You sleep whenever?
Yeah.
So you don't go like, okay, it's 11 o'clock, I'm not going out. So one night it could be early and one night it could be late?
Yeah, that's how I am.
That's how you are too? What about you, Gabby?
Like 8.
8? Ooh, so how, do you get actually more than 6 hours sleep?
Yeah, I sleep all day and then all night.
Good for you. All right. Mason, what about you? You sleep often?
Yeah, I get like 8 hours a week.
Oh, that's good. All right, so now, early in 2020, New York State Senator James Golfis introduced a bill that would move the Empire State to permanent standard time. However, his effects were stalled by COVID-19 and politicians focused on more immediate concerns. So COVID, even though we think of COVID affecting all different things, I didn't really think about COVID affecting our sleep schedule. But it seems like COVID has taken over pretty much all aspects of our lives as we know it. And it's been even closer than we think. I mean, we've had some issues at the junior high too. Yeah, we've had some issues at the junior high. We've had several students, and I think multiple teachers are on 10-day quarantine. And so the high school's been good. We haven't had it, so I think it's harder maybe with some of the younger kids, even though a lot of the students here kind of don't always wear the mask right, because the nose is showing. But also, you guys have strong immunity systems, so it's hard to tell. But in junior high, I'm sure even though there's a limited social distance here, they probably have like no concept of social distancing at that point. So it has to be hard. In elementary, most of those kids don't understand. And you can't blame them, they're very young. But there are continuing to be outbreaks. They close down, they're closing places down in Europe, they're closing places down in the United States again, because it's just getting so bad, and the hospitals itself are starting to fill up in intensive care and stuff like that. So that's the problem, is that people go, why are you closing down when a small percentage of people get this, actually die from it, which is not a small percentage. 1,000 a day is pretty much a lot to me. But they're starting to run out of like ventilators or areas for people to go to in the hospitals. So when that starts happening and the first responders and all that aid is taken away, it's a very dangerous situation. Texas, we're actually like the worst now.
Yeah.
We actually we have the second biggest population, so we should be up there. But we're actually getting worse and worse. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that these masks aren't 100% effective, but they are effective in the sense that it kind of also reminds you of social distancing and stuff like that. But in a lot of places in certain states, they're like anti-mask. And you start getting into those areas, then those are the ones who are starting to have problems now. So COVID's not going to go. A lot of people say, well, as soon as the election's over, COVID will go away. Which I don't think tomorrow everyone will take off their masks and life will be wonderful. So let's see, where was I? Okay. In September, Florida U.S. Senator Marco Rubio and Rick Scott, both Republican, proposed a bill in the Senate to keep America on daylight savings time year-round. They said it would make life easier amid the COVID-19 pandemic because it would be one less worry for the country. Never kind of worried about daylight savings time. I kind of actually liked going to school like this morning and it's light out. Kinda like that. So I go home when it's light, I come to school when it's light, I like that, so. Our government has asked a lot of the American people over the past 7 months, and keeping the nation on daylight savings is just one small step we can take to help ease the burden. Rubio said he advocated for more daylight in the after hours to promote health and well-being. Parents of young people are often overwhelmed by the change with kids waking up early, late, or not settling down to sleep. Manhattan mom Lisa Singer recently launched a petition to persuade New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to permanently keep the clocks from changing. Singer said her 8-year daughter's sleep patterns are particularly disrupted by transitions, and fellow parents are exhausted due to this disruption. I never thought of it this way, and I have 4 kids, and they never seem to. I've never seen like, it was just like, just something we do. I'm not saying that, sometimes we just do stuff and, you know, you just accept it, but I never really saw them having like, oh, like the next 2 days, I can't sleep, or anything like that, but this is what they're saying. People's immune systems are being compromised, and that's what can happen with less sleep. But, and looking back to when my daughter was younger, I used to dread the switch. I'm like, an extra hour? I'm like, that's cool.
Right.
Her position is shared by building contractor Kathy Stolen of Garden City, Kansas, who's a member of the public face group called End Daylight Savings Time. So there's actually a group who are very concerned about this. My body clock doesn't handle the changes well, just as I get used to things being one way. It's time to switch them back, said the mom of 2 grown kids. The legislature needs to leave it one way or the other. So this was basically just some questions on daylight saving time. So let's go over this. So when was daylight savings time enacted? Let's see. Enacted officially in 1966. But it was put together in actually like, they started talking about it actually in the 1800s. Because obviously it was different back then since they didn't have electricity. Instead of wasting like a lot of oil and stuff like that for lamps. What COVID-related argument have those calling for an end to daylight savings time made? What COVID-related argument? People are already under stress. So people are already under stress is the argument from the COVID people. Dr. Malo, basically, she advocates staying in standard time once the clocks go back in the spring. So staying in standard time when the clocks go back in the spring. So basically, it would be dark when you go to school every day. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, it's just, that's what she perceives. All right, the states that, and territories that currently stay on standard time year-round. Is Hawaii, you don't have to write all these. Hawaii, Arizona, Puerto Rico, Guam, the North Mariana Islands, and Virgin Islands. You have to write all those, just a couple. Now, it's just a fact, Puerto Rico's actually voting for statehood again, this election, so Puerto Rico could be, it's not the first time they voted for it though, but they still have to be accepted by the United States, even though it's a territory. But Puerto Rico's possibly trying to become the next state. We haven't had a state, I think the last state we had was Hawaii, and they are actually trying to become a state, which would help them out, especially with like the hurricanes and resources and stuff like that, so just a little off the track, but don't watch the video, don't worry about 5. Do you think it makes a difference on number 6? Do you think it makes a difference to change the clocks back? I mean, do you really care if we change it back? No. I would actually, I like it being the way it is. I really do like driving in the morning when it's light. But I've never encountered, and it sounds like most of y'all have not encountered an issue with your sleep habits. I think, that's kind of predetermined by the individual. And so that's pretty much it for that. These are articles that we're going to start looking at, so just fill out those questions that we talked about. These are the articles that they have a whole bunch of different on a new website, so we're going to be going through some of these just so we can talk about some particular things that are happening in the current, because you know, we kind of sometimes just accept things are the way they are, but there's a legitimate reason sometimes why. And sometimes maybe we should, as an individual, you might decide one day down the road you don't like daylight savings time or some other issue, and you might join this club. But otherwise, you might just need to know the information on what it actually is about. So it was actually put in to save energy. So, and like I said, it was put in prior to, they started doing it prior, but not officially, prior to electricity. So what would happen is they were trying to get it, so when people's work schedules were longer, when they were going home, it was dark. And so they would light the streets with oil and other stuff. And then you'd be lighting your houses with oil, you do all this. So what they were trying to do on certain parts of the year, push it back. So when it's darker, you're only using, it's closer to your sleep time. So we're not burning all these fossil fuels and all this other stuff. And so that's kind of why it was put in place. But I think there's one place that you go, like you can drive, it's like a couple hundred miles if you go to a certain route in the United States, and you can change time differences like 6 different times. Because some states don't actually have it like we saw here. So, all right, so that's the one thing. So that's what that's all about. So hopefully you learned something about daylight savings time. And we have another 6 months to worry about that. So now what we need to do is go into Canvas, and it'll be an election worksheet for this day. I'm going to pull the PowerPoint up for it, but then we just need to go to the election worksheet. So I think when you sign on to that, when you try to get on that document, it's going to make sure you're signed into your Google account, and then it will bring you into that form, which, like I said, we can just fill out while we're doing the PowerPoint presentation. So it's a nice little, I wish I worked on it earlier because it's a nice little program. I think it makes life a lot easier. And then you can I could stop prophecy killing trees. And so that would be nice too. So you want to go on your phone, so sign on your phone to Canvas. Or if you don't want a phone, I have iPod, laptops, or I even have, you want this?
Oh, sure.
Okay, let me get a plug for you. It should be full, but just in case. Because you have a plug right by you, don't you? I have another one if someone needs it. All right, so is everyone getting on Canvas? All right. It is not the CAMI, but it says the election worksheet. Election worksheet. Come on. Let's go on Canvas, please. Would you like to go in there automatically? Oh, okay, you got one. Yeah. And see, like, so touch one of those. It might be harder on your phone,
Yeah. Okay, go all the way to the left. Yeah, oh, see, there's the text box. So now touch the T, and then touch that box right, touch that line right there. Yeah, right there. Boy, that's good. T, here, and then, see how it opens up a box for you?
Can I do it with Google?
Yeah.
Yeah, then you put the text. Huh? Oh, okay, cool.
It's kind of a little easier way.
Yes. I think you have to do it like once. Student. And so you're on there, so say, see the T on there? Hit the T, so it's highlights. Now, go to one of those blocks and see how you can just type in.
Yeah.
Sounds a little easier, right? Especially if you said you're still good if you're going. So, we're going to go over this, and this is basically the election process. Now, the election process is a little bit interesting in a sense that there's a lot of controversy with it, and I'll tell you why. Okay. Is that the box right there? I don't have my glasses. Okay, good. All right, so the first thing is, obviously we have election today. So the election process is kind of interesting in a sense that you would think that popular vote in the United States would mean a winner. But that's not the case how elections work. So last election, Hillary Clinton actually got 3 million more votes than Trump. So with that conclusion, one might come up with the idea that Hillary Clinton would have won. But Hillary Clinton didn't win, because she didn't play the political map the way she should have. And what I mean by that is that there is a point system. And each state is worth so many points. So like Texas is worth so many points, so and so California is worth so some of the bigger states obviously are worth the most points. And so if you add them all up, it's like 400 points for all the states. Okay? But it's the first person usually to get to 270 points or delegates, but we'll just say points for now to simplify it, that wins the election. So Clinton getting 3 million more votes, but if she got, like, in California, she got 2 million more of those votes than Trump did, then she's already won California. But she won it by such a wide range that 3 million, the popular count's not going to make a difference. The count's going to make a difference when you get into states like Wisconsin and states that don't always vote Republican or Democrat. If you're in Texas right now, and tonight you were going to see what Texas results are, you're almost 100% positive who will win Texas? Trump. And that's because most states vote Republican or Democrat. So Texas is a Republican state. So realistically, unless Trump does something majorly to offend a bunch of people in Texas, or go against what a bunch of people in Texas think, he will win Texas. Just like California will go to Biden. Pretty much a guarantee those are going to go that way. Now, so you have all these states that are already gonna vote, no matter what they do, they're already gonna vote this or that way. But then you have swing states, which is like Wisconsin. So Wisconsin, for the last, say, 4 elections, 3 were for Democrats, the last one was for Republican. And these are called swing states. And they do not necessarily always vote Republican or Democrat as a state. So if you don't pay attention to these states that can basically swing an election, that's why they're called swing states, then you can win the popular vote and still lose the election. Now, this is called the Electoral College, and they're actually thinking about trying to get rid of it. But it has impacted the Republicans more positively with this system in place. Bush Jr. ran against Al Gore. This was in 2000, so 20 years ago. He ran against Al Gore. Al Gore, once again, a Democrat, a Republican, Al Gore won the popular vote. But he lost the election because he didn't run his campaign well enough for those swing states. So that's what's going on tonight, and that's why this election is going to be so interesting, is the fact that if you look at polls, which you can't put all kinds of trust in the polls, but if you look at polls, Biden is winning by 10%. The American voters, 10%, you have like a 3% error in there, so say 7 or 6%. He is winning, according to the polls, by 6%, which is great. I'm not saying either way, but it's great for him. But the reality-wise is that if he's not winning in the way the map is set up, and he's just winning 6 or 10% in the states that he's already going to get no matter what, then he can lose the election. So the polls don't really matter. So right now, Hillary Clinton was way up in the polls before the last election, and she ended up losing. No one gave Trump thought Trump had any chance of winning, and actually pulled it off. He understood the campaign